So this is episode 2 of Ryan squirming trying to pronounce names.
Oh,
Welcome everybody.
oh man, where's my cheat sheet?
Yeah.
Chad, dang it. I haven't been practicing. Um, can you help me out with pronunciation?
In Kilo Chin.
In Kilochin.
Yeah.
Kilo Chin.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. So we're joined again in Kilochin, otherwise known as Chief Chad to me. Was on a couple of weeks ago with his dad, Wastikin, on his 75th birthday. And it's awesome to have Chad join us again this week in Kilochin. And we've also brought back Thomas DeSchutter, who was the original
OG.
the OG, original host, co-host of the Dad Talks show here. So yeah, here we are, gentlemen.
We are here.
Here we are.
and here we are.
All right, so I'll do a little bit more introduction. I just try not to. I don't want to. Last time I looked at our show, I was like, man, I talked too much at the beginning. So I'll make it quick, and then we'll just jump right in. People are like, I don't want to hear that guy talking all the time. All right, so you guys know Alain. If you watched our shows before, dial back and see Thomas at the original OG shows. Episode 34 was with Chief Chad and his dad. And here we are. There is a special connection also that, which is why Thomas is wanting to be here, is he's got a really cool story I wanted him to be able to share with Chief Chad, and there's a lot to unpack there. So why don't we just jump right in?
We can
Yeah.
do that. I'm going to change my name here, though.
You are?
Jeez.
It should be Rev. Come on. Where's the Rev?
Well, that's on the land side. Land's got all the fancy tools and controls at his side there.
Here we go.
Well, maybe I'll just give a little bit of context then while we do some technical work here live. So there we go. Boom.
There we go.
Alain the Wizardry. Okay, so Thomas, maybe tell us the story then. Maybe just back us
Okay.
up to, yeah.
All right. So in Kilochin, am I doing that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if you know or remember this. Ryan shared with you that he had a friend that was going on a motorcycle journey to be ordained in the U.S. And you suggested some landmarks that were important to your people that this person might want to visit on their journey. Well, that person was me. And so last June 2023, I had completed my 5 years of seminary and was being ordained as a minister with Unity Ministries in Missouri. And so I live on Vancouver Island in the Nanaimo area, so the Nanaimo people. And I had really no plan other than I was just going to ride there and try to avoid freeways as much as possible. And so when Ryan presented this to me, I thought, well, that sounds like a really great idea. I really don't have, something in mind that I want to do. So I made that my journey to stop at as many of these places that you had suggested as I could. I don't have the list in front of me. I couldn't find the full list that Ryan sent me, but I believe I stopped at them all. And I'll share some of my experience, but one of the interesting things to me was when I arrived at Unity Village and I started to mingle with my colleagues and fellow students that were graduating with me. People were like, hey, you must be so excited. This can be really great. And I was completely humbled by the experience of stopping at all of these important places to your people, things like the Devil's Tower, the Crazy Horse Memorial, the Wounded Knee Memorial, the Medicine Wheel, the Dignity of Earth and Sky, the Little Bighorn Battlefield, the Bighorn Canyon, the Steptoe Battlefield in Idaho, and reading what was there in terms of historical and how much of it is factual. I don't know if it's all been changed to tell the truth. You know, instead of the battle of, I think it was the what is it, the not the wounded, might have been, yeah, the battle at Wounded Knee. It was changed to the massacre, right? There was a piece of plywood put up that actually told the story as to what really happened, not, you know, the white guy's version of what happened. And anyhow, I just owe a great deal of gratitude to you for suggesting this to Ryan, because it really changed my consciousness on that journey. That motorcycle ride completely changed who I was and what I was going for. I was left all this excited. Look what I've done. You know, I'm so proud of myself, and I am proud of myself. But at the same time, it was also a real humbling experience to find out more about your people, as it was, you know, as you would put it, as these are important places to my people. And it told a greater depth of the story. And, you know, I know that I come from people that came over from Europe. On my side of the family, my mom's French Canadian and has been here for a long time. And as a matter of fact, there's a story in my family, and I don't know if it's true because I don't have the aunts and uncles alive to talk about it, that somewhere in my family is Métis is part of my heritage, because we were in Winnipeg, we were in St. Boniface, we lived on the plains, my French Canadian side. And anyhow, that was the story I wanted to share with you, was to actually meet you again and say thank you, and just should give you my gratitude for putting that out into the world, and then it finding its way to me and me saying yes to that opportunity.
That's pretty cool. You squeezed in Kilochin until Mammal Teeth in Cup Kicking Cool. Yatis Chichkanashkanam till Swanit. So my family comes kind of from all over in the Seal territory, otherwise known as the Okanagan territory. So those are my ancestral roots and my people. And we have a long history of, conflict or wars with other tribes, but like the other Native, Indigenous, First Nations, tribal, groups that surround us and are in and on the land in some of those places. So, yeah, that's pretty awesome to hear that some of the things that I've learned and that my mentors, teachers, friends have shared with me along the way around, some of our connections to land, to our own spirituality, our own belief systems, and our relationship with each other and with all things. So that journey that we've kind of shared together, I hope one day, maybe we try to get back to a lot of those places every year as a reminder, as a little bit of, I don't know. There's something about that journey in our shared history around, I guess our survival. And, I think there was a clash of two worlds back when our people were introduced with each other, and a lot of those places that we visit anyway on an annual basis is kind of like paying homage to the resistance, like at Custer's battlefield there, the Battle of Little Bighorn, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's there was a lot of people that were killed, and on their on their markers, it talks about how they sacrificed, and there's for trying to preserve their way of life, right? Is what it says there. And I have to always recognize some of the people that have shared their journeys that have really shaped some of the information that I shared with you, like Chief Clarence Louis. I get to ride motorcycles with him quite often. He's an avid motorbike rider. He's probably been riding bikes for 30 years or whatnot. So he he really took me under his wing a little bit and said, "Hey, you should get into this, and we should go down here. It's pretty cool." So uh, and then just all of the friendships along the way, especially down in Lakota Sioux uh, territories, down by Pine Ridge and Standing Rock, and we go through Eagle Butte, and that kind of journey, almost as without getting off of the highway and whatever, it somewhat follows the Trail of Tears, and that resistance against the military for our people when the settlers were moving west. So Chief Joseph, Crazy Horse, Sitting Bull, Spotted Elk, all those uh, people who were just trying to protect, their way of life and what they've always known. And, really it it's no different than what everybody else was doing. Yeah, there was all these other things that they thought they were chasing, but, there was such an abundance of food and, resources that were essentially being managed in a way that there's something in here with me. Managed in a way that there's always been an abundance and sustainable, livelihoods and living and practice that, allowed the land to be so lush with food and clean water and, those things that we need to survive. So it's awesome to hear that. I've also been very uh, humbled by the historic sediments and the sacred places and the just the ability to be there and to reconnect with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Much like your story is really finding kind of that awareness about yourself, and how finding some peace and some gratitude for what we do have in our lives, and how we can share that in such times where some people lose hope and lose their way and don't have any faith in 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 life. And I always want to uh, just have a thought for people that are having a hard time and struggling, especially with addictions
Mm-hmm.
and homelessness and trauma, and most of all anger. That anger is a people eater. So in our culture we have stories about people eating monsters, and those things are seen today as some of those human characteristic flaws.
Mm-hmm.
We could talk about those kinds of stories forever and ever, but there's a lot of lessons, values, morals, ethics, practices that are embedded in those stories, especially with our language as the basis of where that knowledge comes from. So yeah, that sounds awesome. And riding bikes, come on, let's go.
I had these moments like it was so when I took a minute to think about what transpired, how spirit, I like people can say what they want when I talk like this, but I can't help but think that spirit was guiding me, that there was something larger at play for me so that I could see what I saw. And an example is I was headed for Old Faithful, right? I wanted to head down into the park, and it was June, and as I got closer and closer, the temperature was getting, like it was freezing, and I didn't have the gear with me. I thought it's June. What do I need? What do I need warm gear with me for? So at some point, I got to a place where I stopped the bike. I was cold, and I thought I can't go spend the night in Yellowstone in my tent. I can't, like, I don't have the gear with me. I've got to turn off. So I got to this intersection. I don't remember what the highways were, and I decided I'm turning left. Right, that's it. I'm turning left, and I was going to make my way back up towards, Custer's Last Stand, or that part, right? And so I started riding. I'm on this beautiful highway, 2 lanes, nobody's on it, just me. It's a gorgeous sunny day. It's a bit chilly. I'm coming down this hill into the valley, and I come across the Battle of the Big Hole. And this was not one of your suggested sites. And I stopped, and I learned all about the Nez Perce National Historic Trail and the battle that took place there in this valley, where the Nez Perce had been running for a few days from the Bluecoats, right, who were chasing them, and they had set up their teepees, and they still what they had done at this site was they actually put up just skeletons of the teepees, where you could see where the Nez Perce were spending the night to just get some peace. And then the next morning, actually, what happened was the army rode in, and they had to run again, and they had to do some battle there, and then they had to run again. And I think it was, the numbers was like something like 90 women and children were killed, and warriors were killed there on that site. And it's all unmarked graves for it. And just down the road from there, as I left, like that just humbled me, reading that and the imagery and seeing where the teepees were, and just the land this valley. And down the road was this small town in America called Wisdom, of all things, right?
Yeah.
And one of the 12 powers, so one of the unity teachings, one of our 12 powers is wisdom, right? So it's like, for me, there was all of these moments that as I was riding along, I would come across these places and something odd would happen. The ride up to the medicine wheel, that rode up the back and forth on the highway there, right? It's a beautiful ride. I get to the medicine wheel. There's 8 cars in the parking lot and my motorcycle. And just as I'm just as I'm getting off the bike and taking off my helmet, 3 motorcycles pull in, and they circle behind me, and then they come around the lot, and they park their bikes in front of me. And of course, we're all say hi to each other. We're all motorcyclists, right? And so there's 8 cars and 4 motorcycles in the parking lot now, right? These guys come over, and one of them says, he goes to the back of my bike, and he looks, and he goes, I thought I recognized the plate. He goes, we're all from BC. Where are you from? And I said, I'm from Nanaimo. And they go, we're from Victoria, right? So,
wow.
Wow.
like what were the insanity of, there's 12 vehicles essentially in this parking lot in Wyoming at Medicine Wheel, and the 4 motorcycles all live within 90 minutes of each other on Vancouver Island, right? It was crazy. But I remember like walking up to Medicine Wheel to see it. It's about a 1.5 mile hike, right up the path. The wind was howling, and the clouds were blowing over top of the mountain from one side to the other. It was the craziest thing I've seen in terms of like just being in that kind of weather, where I was literally watching clouds just come from one side and go over top the mountain and blow the other way. And it was all of these moments I had were I have these mental images in my visual now that I can recall in my imagination, that were incredible moments of understanding, of deepening my relationship to the land. And, I have a friend here, Samquatan, who speaks Hulkaminen,
Mm-hmm.
And he actually just received his master's in the Holkaminen language as he
Yeah.
brings it back and enforces it in his children. And he, one of the few conversations I've had with him where we've been one on one, what I really learned was the connection to the land, the importance, and as he put it, and you mentioned it too, the language is that the way he phrased it to me was our language is the land.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's been developed with the land in mind. Like they're connected, they're not separate.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just so powerful to me to get that understanding is and I don't even think I fully understand what that fully means yet, just how connected those that is for your people, I will assume, and I know for some Quattins people, just that connection here on Vancouver Island. And I've always, as a kid, every time I've gotten off the ferry onto Vancouver Island, I've always felt like I've been stepping into sacred something. It's always had this feeling to
Right.
me. I'm not surprised I ended up moving here at some point in my life because it's always had this. I felt like I was entering a new territory. It's always been interesting to me. Anyhow, there's all these moments I could share of discovery as I was on this motorcycle journey, and I want to go do it again. Like I would actually I would go do that route again that I did and explore all those things, and go down into um, Monument Valley, like getting into Monument Valley and
Oh yeah.
seeing those sites. Just I
Yeah.
was in tears. I was
Yeah.
bawling my eyes out at the majestic, incredible views I was looking at of land and realizing that I'm, my humanness in that. It
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
it was incredible.
Yeah. That's awesome. The I've had similar experiences. First time going to some of those places, hearing about them, and the I think one of the things that draws us to going back every year is that there's these communities where we go. So the Wounded Knee motorcycle ride, Memorial Motorcycle Run, the Navajo Hopi Honor Ride, and from that, we've speaking of Monument Valley, precious memories there. I proposed to my fiance down there last May. Right on that
Oh, cool.
rock overlooking the spaghetti western landscape. It was pretty epic, but
Did she
uh,
say yes?
she didn't push me over the cliff, so I'm thankful. Yeah, she did. Pretty lucky
Congrats.
guy there. So,
Yeah, that's awesome.
but the 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 connection to the land and the spirituality and those things that are out there. Here in Canada, we faced huge challenges with even trying to practice our beliefs. And I think from 1902 to 1952, there was a law that was enacted called the Potlatch Law, where it was against the law for us to practice our, spirituality. And that connection you talk about with the land is really deeply related to our belief system, our worldview, our creation stories, and definitely the language. So that word I used where my people come from, Swanit, on my grandma's side, my uncle and my family side down at the Columbia River at the falls, Kettle Falls. Um, you can hear that sound, and that sound comes from the land and Swanit. Down here we have a little falls at OK Falls. It's Swanit. So you can hear a little bit of that, as an example, but trying to disconnect people from places, and we were talking a little bit about this, Ryan, and it's almost like disconnecting us with ourselves, when we kind of turn into that I don't know, just kind of checking out from all those things that are around us in some major urban centers, right? So not really even looking at people anymore. So
It's
just
almost like psychological warfare,
yeah, we kind
right?
of went down that road a little bit to talk about that, but I'm no
Hmm.
expert, but I know that compassion and you know, risking yourself for something greater than yourself, like you know, is one of the pieces in our creation story. Um, we have a story called the Four Foods story, or the Four Chiefs, or how food was given. It translated in the language, it was really more like how food was given, and it talks about that, how there were changes coming, and the great spirit or the great voice pulled people together, the Tamik, and posed a question. And that question was, you know, what are you going to do to give the people to be the best chance at survival? And from that question, we look at, how everything has a job, everything has a purpose or a function, and they're so interdependent and intertwined with each other that it's kind of like my dad describes it like a puzzle. If you stand a puzzle up like this and you start taking pieces of the puzzle away, especially those ones that are at the base layer, you start taking those pieces away and then the environment collapses. And we're seeing that with the disappearance of many, many of our species that are at risk, from extinction because of what? Because of the human threat is usually the number one cause. So, there's a lot of things that we could talk about, but I just kind of want to circle back to that, that energy and that power, or that there's something more than just us, that if it's power or whatever, however people want to believe it, that um, there's a lot of things that can change with a little bit of hope.
Hmm.
Mm.
And there's a big outlaw world in the biker kind of world, but I think even still they're really looking at trying to find ways to live and enjoy life. That was part of one of the jobs that our um, forefathers were foretold, is to try to enjoy life, and that for some reason has some magic in it when you can, smile, laugh, and just kind of accept, all that's good. And, it really does provide some, some recharge of yourself,
Hmm.
and there's some physiology that happens in your mind that does really heal. So, I won't be cracking too many jokes, but it's there's some relationship with that, that teasing, that camaraderie, and that whole trying to connect with people in place. So
Hmm.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you some of my funniest moments on that trip were actually just people. I stopped in this Walmart in Nebraska to use the restroom and get some snacks, right? And I'm putting the bike up, putting it on the kickstand, taking off my helmet, and this guy, this random human, just comes up to me. He's like, "Yeah, nice bike, man. Yeah, yeah." Yeah, I'd have gone riding today, but the old lady, she just wouldn't let me out of the house, right? like it was amazing to me how many times that would happen where guys would just randomly come up to me and start talking to me just because I was on a motorcycle.
Yeah,
It's a completely different energy around you when you're in that sort of, I call it like the freedom zone, right? Because I just feel like I'm so much more free. I'm connected to the land, as you know, right? I mean,
Yeah.
and Ryan knows as well. Like as soon as the temperature changes, you feel it. As soon as you enter like a pine, forest, you smell it. Like
Yeah.
you are immersed in nature around you while you're doing, 120 miles an hour down a highway or something, right? Like you're in the environment at a different level. And something else you were talking about, that human connection, one of the things when I look back on, my life, and I just celebrated my 60th birthday, and there's a lot of reflection that can come from that experience, as Ryan and Alain will see it there as they age on, that you have these moments where you look back and go, wow, what have I done with my life? um, One of the great gifts I was given by, creator and my parents was a drum set. And my connection to music and playing in bands and touring with bands and working with people on a spiritual, what I would call music, on a spiritual level, is part of what saved me as a child. It gave me a connection to something greater than myself. And I was bullied in high school. I was not well liked in high school by the cool people, like to, threaten me and bully me. And my going home to my drum kit was a saving grace. It allowed me to do something that nobody could take away from me. Like I get to do this and do it as well as I would like to do it, and nobody can stop me or take it away from me. And and that's also bottled up in my motorcycle riding, because my favorite drummer, Neil Peart of Rush, rode hundreds of thousands of miles on tour on a motorcycle. That's what inspired me to get a motorcycle, was
Wow.
his stories, his tales of riding on tour and all the sights and beauty that he saw around the world.
That's super cool. Having a purpose when you ride, eh?
Mm-hmm.
There's so many communities. We got to connect with, I ride with some of my friends here. Skukulel, he's another person from our community here. He's a brother and somebody who we kind of started riding motorcycles about the same time, and just have a real connection and affinity to the land and to our culture and practices, and trying to learn as much as we can before we lose our teachers and mentors and our language speakers. So but we ride, and so I'm going to start first by just saying, you know, there was a rule that I was told. I don't know if it's a rule or whatnot, but it's somebody asked me when I was first starting to ride, what's the first thing that you do if say you drop your motorcycle? What's the first thing that you do or that you should do?
I don't know.
Look around and see if anybody saw you.
Oh yeah.
You're not supposed to drop your bike. It's pretty special to you. So, but having a purpose and riding a bike, and getting out there on the land, that really the passion that drives us to go to these other places, and support some of these other rides. And it's no different than what we kind of believe here in the Seal territory around landmarkers. And those landmarkers they're not only like these great, big, significant places, but they're things that have shaped how we live on the land.
Mm-hmm.
And we take ties, tobacco ties, sage ties, we take prayer ties, and we leave them in these places because of those stories that are told of those places, and how that either they're reminding us about maybe the history or some of the things that are important inside of our own way of living.
Right.
And it's it's led us to having our own motorcycle ride. And here's my plug, my shameless plug.
Awesome.
We we have worked on salmon recovery in the Okanagan for over 40 years since they started, damming up the Columbia River and moving in that hydroelectric era, industrial era, which has had drastic impacts on the environment. Salmon, migratory salmon from Portland that come up into, BC, Canada. Our nation has worked on salmon recovery for the last 40 plus years, like I was saying. And, in 2009, I was with a group of elders when we seen the return of the sockeye into, the OK Falls, Penticton area. And it was pretty amazing. About 80% of those elders that I was with down there are not here anymore. So hearing their stories about restoration and reciprocity and, that honoring our agreements and, upholding our responsibilities and saying things like that while they were praying and, saying things like, well, I never thought in my life I would ever see that. That's the way it's supposed to be. From what I remember being told as a child, and that was really a significant moment for me in my life. So I've talked, you know, with some of our people from here and that ride motorbikes, and we're thankful for the support from Chief Clarence Louie. He's said, yeah, let's do that. So he's brought some of his support and finding a way to help with a little bit of the gas money and you know so about the third week in September we do a Columbia River salmon ride, save our salmon ride, and it's a little bit of chaos, motorcycle rides
That's
and
perfect.
organizing people, it's especially people like that are independent riders. They don't really like to follow the rules or deal with all the politics. But I think the first year we had 7 or 8 bikes that rode through from the ocean to the border. And then the first year we had about 25 people meet us in Osceola. They rode up to OK Falls where we do a annual salmon feast. And this year we had 10 bikes ride with us all the way, but there was maybe 10 or 15 bikes that joined us from Osceola to OK Falls. But, riding along the Columbia River and watching and looking at and connecting with the river and all the challenges that salmon have, on a 1100 mile to 17 or 1800-mile journey, coming from the ocean up into, they're returning home. And being a part of something like that is a really big part of who I am. And how all that works. So I'm just gonna try to touch my mic here. Might get a little echo I heard. So.
Yeah, it just suddenly started happening. That sounds great. I would love to put that on my calendar as a to do to join that ride. That sounds awesome. I'd love to be a part of that.
So my shameless plug is we're always looking for sponsors.
Yeah.
So
How many went on the last one, Chad? How many on the ride?
there was about 10. So we took 2 trucks and trailers down for support, and we don't have monster big trailers, so. And then it's not just a motorcycle ride. It's kind of like we've had trucks and vans follow behind us, and it's a part of just a journey, right? So
Mm-hmm.
definitely appreciate oh, this picture was in Yellowstone in the Lamar Valley, just above the lake.
Mm.
So we seen this guy, but if you look at this buffalo's horn on the road here in front of us, that's me right there.
Is this coming,
Looks like I'm only a few feet away.
Alain? Would this go through? I'm just sharing my screen. Does that go through, or does that
I'm
need to
seeing
be?
it.
Yeah, I can see it. So
Not
maybe
on
if
the.
it's going out on the
Not
live.
on the. No, not here.
Not on
I
the
can
live.
try that. Let's see.
So yeah, Chad shared a picture of one of the rides here. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, we'll just see if I don't know. I just spontaneously send it. You send it to me. I send it to Alain. See if we can get it on Zoom here on live.
yeah, that was riding through Yellowstone. So we tried to go through Yellowstone and ride with the buffaloes. They're a part of the history that I don't think a lot of people um, look at it from the side that they were a part of the landscape. They were part of the land, and they had a really important job, in terms of trying to create some balance in the in their territories. I heard Dr. Leroy Littlebear describe Indigenous knowledge being really an infant compared to the knowledge that, say, the buffalo have or any of the animals have in terms of how long we've existed. Right? And if you look at creation stories from around the world, it kind of the 450,000 years maybe humans have been around on Earth based on archaeology. And then you look at some of these animals, and the Earth itself, in terms of billions of years of knowledge systems that, we can't even comprehend how much they give us. And one of my uncles, my uncle Richard, his child, he's the one that does the salmon ceremony at Kettle Falls. And that goes back to the coyote times when Coyote brought salmon up the river in our stories. But he said, my grandma used to say that, we're part of the health of the land, and the health of the land is a part of us. And he said, you see that tree right there? What it breathes out is what we breathe in. And what we breathe out is what it breathes in. There's a really complex but yet simple example of how a healthy environment is directly tied to our health and how we live. So clean air, clean water, clean food, is really a lot of the things that we need to survive. And, unfortunately, our waters are being over polluted, and, the land is being poisoned, with all the chemicals and all the things that are, being put out there for other reasons.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's there was a research study done out of the University of Victoria called the Ecological Footprint Analysis. I think it was in '96 it came out, and it was talking about the carrying capacity of the Earth and how human consumption, the changes that the humans have made on Earth, it kind of talked about a tipping point on the resources that the Earth could provide in terms of human population. So, those things, they impact us all, right? They definitely impact every single living thing on the earth. So, and right now, humans have the biggest impact or influence on, what the future looks like for the entire globe, the entire earth. So, it's I'm a new grandpa. October 14th, I had my first grandchild. So, things like that really take a different, I take a little bit of a different perspective, and, you know, trying to share those principles and those thoughts and those ideas, that perspective, is hopefully, that the next time people have a moment to think about where their food comes from, or where their water comes from, how that it does, really give us the energy that we need to do whatever it is in our life that
Mm-hmm.
helps sustain that. So,
You reminded me of when you talked about bringing your tobacco offering. You reminded me of Richard Wagame's, because I've read One Drum and I've read Embers, and he talks about ceremony. I forget which one it is. It might be One Drum where he talks about ceremony, and one of the ceremonies he talks about is going into the forest, or an area of land overnight, and spending the night awake in you know out in nature with no safety nets around you, right? And I've thought many times about doing this, about just putting myself in that. I haven't yet done it, but you reminded me of that. And the other thing that you reminded me of, and I do want to bring this up because this is something that impacted me, was agreements. You talked about agreements. And when I stopped at the Little Big Hole, or the Battle of the Little Big Hole, and read about the Nez Perce, and I think, was Chief Joseph part of them? And they were on their way to Canada, I believe, in this last stand, and they ended up only 80 or 90 miles away from the border or something, when he finally said, we can't do this anymore, because they had no blankets, and the people were freezing and dying, and he had to finally just go, we can't do this. I have to make sure these people survive. And they gave up, and they were just short of the Canadian border. But one of the things that I read there was that when they signed their original treaty, and I may not have the numbers right, and it doesn't really matter what the numbers are, it's what happened. They were granted something like 7 million acres or hectares of land that they could have. But the forestry there became important, and so that treaty was rearranged so that they only then had 700,000 hectares of land. And then other resources there became important. And so that treaty was rearranged again to where they only had 7,000 hectares of land. And I remember when I read that, I was just like, I was ashamed on one level. Certainly I didn't do that, but I'm part of the system that did that, right? And it was that kind of stuff that really just, just really made me look at myself at a deeper level, and my ancestors. Not to blame them, not to shame anybody, but just to look at that consciousness that would do that, and ask myself, is that something I want to bring forward? Is that type of thinking, or that type of giving up on my word, something that I would want to bring forward or teach to anybody else? And that's why I think when I arrived in Missouri at Unity Village, I was humbled to a great level of just trying to integrate that experience of what this happened on this land where I live. This is what happened, and really trying to come to terms with that. And when you said agreements, I just didn't want to step over that. I think for anybody that's watching this that doesn't know those kind of stories, or isn't really sure about what happened, there's a huge responsibility that we can take. Not, and again, not as a, hey, I need to feel bad about myself, or I need to shame anybody or any of that, but to understand what we can do or not do depending on our consciousness and what we're going to call or ask of ourselves. And Ryan knows this. I mean, I've listened to Ryan now and his Japanese heritage and what was done there. And I worked on a show, Snow Falling on Cedar, as I worked in the movie business, and I went up into those areas that Ryan's family knows so well, and learned about what we did to the Japanese people here in this country, and those kind of things. And I think it's important for people to realize how easy it is to turn on one another just like that, to not hold dearly the life that is in front of you as a human being, as being as sacred as your life. You just, Nikilo Chin, you're bringing up just a lot for me in that, with your words. And I want to make sure that if we're going to talk about this stuff, that we kind of lay that on the table as well, for people to realize that there's a part that we can all play going forward in the choices that we make, as we live.
I'm curious, Thomas, when you went on that journey, did you have, like, was there not an expectation, but did you think that you were going to see something? And then when you got to the different places, like, was there something totally different that emerged, or was it like what surprised you most about it? Because if it's like you weren't planning on it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, that sounds kind of cool.
I think it was, that's a great question, Alain. I had it in my mind that this was my pilgrimage to be ordained. Like, I sort of was treating it like, this is, I've never done it before. So I'd only been riding a motorcycle for 2 years. I had never gone on a ride longer than like an hour and a half, I think. I'd certainly never done that alone on a motorcycle. I left my family behind, who were going to fly and meet me there to celebrate it. And I kept referring to it as, this is my pilgrimage. So I had no expectation. I didn't even know what I was going to do until Ryan, shared in Killichin's, hey, your friend should do this. These are important to our people. It's like, okay, that sounds like a great idea. I'll go do that. I didn't know what I would learn or be exposed to, or how it would show up. It was really just, I'm going to go do this and arrive and be ordained and, celebrate the work that I've done. Not knowing that probably some of the deepest work I was going to do in all of that came on that ride. Like I said, when I arrived in Unity Village and people were like, hey, you must be so excited, like, congratulations. And I was like, yeah, it's great. Mm-hmm. In the grand scheme of things, what I've just done is like really not that big a deal. It's like anybody could have done this, and had they wanted to. What I just experienced was a much bigger deal. Like, that was a life-changing, wisdom, knowledge, however you want to call it. I learned some things about myself and about humanity that I could not have planned on. That there's no way I could have thought that I was going to receive that. It was a gift. And I'd say my openness, my willingness to just be in that space of somebody I don't know, through a good friend of mine, said, go do this. And I was like, yeah, sure. Why not? That sounds like a great idea. Right. Like, it had to be done in a way where I had no expectations, where I was just going to live, and it was like, I know I talk a lot, but going to Monument Valley, my story around going to Monument Valley was that there's this woman on Insight Time, or not on Insight Time, or on Instagram. I would see her posts, and I forget her name, and I haven't seen a post of hers in a while. And that's her land, right? Her heritage is there. So I understand that she's native to the land. Her people are, and she'd share some things of spending the night walking around there and hunting there with her bow and arrow. And for some reason, I was like, I've got to go to Monument Valley. Like, if there's one thing I need to do on this trip, I've got to go there as well. And I had no idea why. I just needed to. And there's that stretch of highway where it's the Forrest Gump Highway, right? Well, because I have a motorcycle, there's some dirt roads that under a gate, you know, you could swing in and kind of go off on your own and be off the main highway. And I did that. And I stood up my bike and I was just looking at those three big towers that are there, staring at them. It was a beautiful sunny day and they were red and the colors and the sky was so blue. Like it was, you know, you had to be there. You literally, like for me, I stood there and I was looking at it and I just started bawling my eyes out. I had no idea why. I was completely overcome with emotion and just, I cried for about 4 minutes solid, just like a deep, deep, deep wailing cry for, I can't even tell you why. I don't even know, have a reason to this day why, but there was something that needed to come out of me. And when I left there, I was different. I was a different person than when I showed up. So I hope that answers your question, Alain. I had no expectations. I just knew I had to do, you know, that journey, and it was my pilgrimage. It was something for me personally to experience.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. And I'm curious too, for Chad, when you, I'm sure this is not the first time you've recommended those sites and things like that for people to see. Like, do you have a hope for when people see these sites or when they experience those things, like something that you hope that they get out of it? Or yeah, like what's your thought about it?
Well, I think, you know, we just heard Thomas describe his experience, and I think finding those I don't know, moments of joy, because tears are not always of sadness.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when you can just accept whatever that is. You know, becoming a dad is one of those moments where it's just like, oh wow, my life is not going to be the same from now on. You know, the moments like that, you know, where you just, there's something like Thomas described that, you know, inside of you that changes. You get a whole new appreciation about, you know, how big the world is, but also, you know, how little things do matter. You know, the little things sometimes can make a big difference, and not to give up, you know, in terms of being overwhelmed with life or anything that's thrown at you.
Mm.
And, yeah, you know, what I hope for is for people to realize that, you know, there are two sides to the story about what happened, you know, in our history. And I rode bulls for 25 years, you know, competitively, and saddle bronc horses. And every time, you know, I would finish a ride or get bucked off or whatever, I would reflect on what happened in the past. In this case, in the past. And I would think about how I could change what I do to improve an outcome on the next. You know, I'm going to fix a move, right? I'm going to, if I feel this, then I'm going to do that. So I'm always looking at trying to improve myself in relation to what I'm going to do, what my goals are, what my, you know, what's ahead of me. The next time that I do that, you know, and it's kind of like riding a bike too, you know, you start to learn how every bike you ride might be a little bit different, and, you know, the distribution, the balance point, and you start to, you know, have a real higher sense of, you know, when your tires are getting low, and, you know, just your whole sensory awareness is heightened. And in that state, you know, you really see things for what they are. You know, the littlest thing on the road, you know, the snakes on the road, the cracks, the potholes, the way people drive, you know, it's way different than sitting in a car and saying, "Oh, you know, oh, are we there yet?" You
Right.
know, I think, you know, when Thomas is talking about Monument Valley, we went down last year for the first time to ride with the Hopi Navajo honor riders, and we were able to ride with members of the Navajo Nation, Hopi Nation, and people from all over the U.S., Canada, all over the world. About 85 bikers get together and join the ride, and it's to honor Gold Star uh, family members, people who have made the ultimate sacrifice in combat, people who've died in service, and their families are left, you know, and what we witnessed was beautiful. So I just want to shout out to, you know, Bobby Martin and Hopi Navajo riders. You know, it's a really beautiful thing that they do to honor the parents, the sisters, the children of, you know, people who sacrifice their lives in trying to give us the freedoms that we enjoy, you know, and both in Canada and the US. So, but down there, they go to the families who, these Gold Star member families, and yeah, it'd be cool. I bet you Bobby would be down to jump on this, on the podcast and share a little bit more about, in detail, what they do. But the one of the messages that I got from there is that they're telling these people who lost somebody that they loved that they're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's a lot of them that are ex-military, you know, vets, and they come together and they both active and, you know, retired, and uh, they want to honor, you know, the families, especially that they have such common values, and you know, those shared consequences, you know, of trying to defend what they believe in. So that's a lot like the Wounded Knee ride. You know, it's a lot like the Salmon ride. They sacrifice their bodies to give us food, to give all things on the land food. So, you know, there's a common theme, you know, and riding a motorcycle is definitely more risky on the road, especially going through Salt Lake City. Holy smokes, that's crazy in there. But, you know, on the freeway, riding around the Navajo Nation Reserve with the people from that place was definitely a real privilege, because they were able to talk about their sites, their land, and their beliefs and their history. So, you know, not only the agreements, but also you know, the knowledge from the locals. You know, we really appreciate that side of the story. So, you know, when you talk about that, you know, I think about the truth. You mentioned the treaties and how they were changed, and you know, in Canada, we're going through the Truth and Reconciliation era with Indigenous people, and you know, and sometimes talking about the truth does create shame. It does create, you know, a real conflict that, you know, continues to go unresolved for people. I know I have uncles and aunties and relatives, you know, on my mom's side, but in a little bit of the broader family that, you know, they did go to residential. You know, they witnessed it firsthand, and some of them don't want to talk about it. They don't want to deal with it. And others are saying, you know, like, the truth needs to be heard about what happened to children, you know, especially the children that didn't get to go home, or the violence that was, you know, put on them for speaking their language. And, you know, it was uncalled for in terms of, you know, how, from my perspective, how in my research, in about 1776, there was a group of 10 people that were found in the wintertime. And our high chief, Polkamulo, said, they came across them and they brought them to a close village. And he said to the village chief, he said, you take care of these people like they're my own children. And that kind of hospitality and grace and generosity, about another human being's life, it was, it wasn't a race question. It wasn't a belief question. It wasn't, they didn't question those things. Those people were suffering. They were having a hard time, and they wanted to help. And I think, that the way that the world is going, that sense of community is getting smaller and smaller and smaller, where we just genuinely care for each other and want to help each other. And, it's something that we hope to teach our children, that when you do have, that you can share. When you do have that, you can share. If it's time, energy, food, we try to teach our kids about giving back and reciprocity and especially gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
It's just there's no other sense of pride, no other sense of self, than to. And one of our customs, it's about trying to give the best of what we have, and especially to each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it lifts everybody, and it, our social and governing structure in the Silk Territory was really an egalitarian system. Male, female, and everybody chipped in. Everybody, the bounty was shared equally. So, there's a lot of principles and ethics that we could talk about and how we live, but it's people have to find their own way. In terms of how they accept themselves in this world and what they want to be. It's possible to be whatever you want. It is possible. And, you just you don't have to prove it to anybody. You just have to accept it for yourself that, there's a greater purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Well said.
Yeah, man. Well, I super appreciate you guys' your input and your experience and just being your willingness to share. I always love being when I get a chance to just be the fly on the wall and just listen and learn from other people. So I really appreciate you guys I just appreciate you guys. Period.
Yeah, me
Mutual.
too. Man, a lot of appreciation. What time? We didn't sort of set a time here, but just to honor everyone's time. How much longer do you guys got?
I'm not sure. I'm supposed to have a call with somebody in 2 minutes, but I'm not sure whether we changed our weeks and they're now flip-flopped if it's this week or next week.
Okay, well, here my list of things to talk about with Chad in this conversation keeps getting longer, not shorter. So we will resume this conversation at a future date. I'll just quickly say then, Thomas Donna, your commitment there that I love you guys and I really appreciate all of us on this call here.
I can stay till they phone me. Like,
okay.
If they don't phone me, it's not happening.
Oh, they're calling you. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that's good. You don't have to be on that call. Okay.
No.
Well, I've got kids that are starting to bang down the doors here.
Oh, those kids.
Yeah,
Those things.
Thomas is in a different phase.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, one of them's still there for a little bit longer. Actually, no, they're all back.
They're
back,
both
right?
here now. Yeah. I have
Okay,
twins.
Yeah. But
I have 18-year-old twin daughters, and one is in Michigan for university. She just came home on the 20th for Christmas time, and the other one will be going to Vancouver to Langara in January. So as of in January, they will both be gone, and I will officially be with my wife, an empty nester, as they call it. Yeah.
Quite the different phase, yes. Okay, well, yes, we all live the dad life. I think Chad, you'd mentioned someone had already come in to see you, and I know my little list will be up here shortly. So, uh, yeah, we will definitely have this conversation again, if that's okay with you guys. And there's many notes I took here, which we're not going to get to talk about. We'll post maybe some of those pictures, Chad, that you shared. Maybe we can insert them as, well, no, we don't edit, but maybe they could be in the clips as B-roll. Some beautiful shots on the motorbikes. Maybe just to end with, where can people find you guys after this talk here? Thomas, Chad, what's the best way for people to connect with you, to engage with you, hear from you?
I'll let Gillichine go first.
I kind of want to be a hobbit, so. No, I think just looking at these websites for those rides that I was talking about, they can definitely check out the Wounded Knee Memorial Motorcycle Run and the Hopi Navajo Honor Ride down in around the Navajo Nation Reserve. I'm sure they got websites, but for me, I kind of want to stay a little bit low profile in social media, so a friend of a friend of a friend, if you find our paths crossing, then I enjoy visiting and talking about places we've been and experiences, but we try to expose our kids to the world, and through bringing them on some of these journeys that we have with motorcycles, family, friends, we really are hoping to give them a greater sense of community. There's a lot of distrust in the world around us, and especially around some of the things, the stereotypes of motorcycles and people that ride in packs and doing the outlaw motorcycle people. There's definitely those factions, but there's also the camaraderie and the community and the shared knowledge about when your bike breaks down and you need some help. It might not be a mechanic, but there's always something like that we can gain value from. And sometimes our greatest challenge is our biggest lessons. So, I just want to say thanks to my kids for always being excited to hear the motorcycle roar.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you, Chad. Well, I'll get some of those dates from you then, and we'll link them in here. And I will do that for myself and get that on the calendar. And I think I'm going to need a bigger bike so to keep up with you guys. And how about yourself there, Reverend?
Yeah, well, you can find me at thomasdeschutter.com. Easy enough. You can find me on Insight Timer, is one of my passions, teaching live sessions on Insight Timer, and Unity Vancouver Island, where I am the senior minister. You can find me there. There's lots of places you can find me. I'm probably too easy to find, actually.
TikTok. I know I've been seeing you a lot on there, which is good.
I've started to step up my social media game because I'm now into the next 10 years of my life here. So, but I think, I can't resist an opportunity to minister when I see it right in front of me. And I think that what somebody could take away from this, and Kiluchin is an incredible example of this, is that we don't know how we could impact somebody else's life. We don't know the light that we can be, or the permission that we can be for somebody else to lift themselves up and to reach a new, to transcend themselves into a new level of consciousness. And, when I think of your impact in Kilochin, of sharing with Ryan, oh, your friend could do this, like the simplest thing that you threw out of, he could do this, and threw some names out, you had no idea the impact that your words, this is, if we want to get back to language, your words would have on another human being. And as a result, how I'm sharing that story and the words that I'm sharing and how that is now impacting other people, right? That the effect of that, we just don't know what we can do. And this is why language is so important. And the words that we speak are so important. The words that we speak to one another and how we speak to one another is so important. The words that we speak to ourselves in our mind, what we say about ourselves to ourselves, what we say about ourselves in the, in those moments of panic or fear or anger, whatever that is, and how we recover from that. That's what there is, in my mind, to take away from a conversation like this, is the impact that we can have on each other's lives in the most beautiful way, from something as simple as, hey, tell your friend to do this, not knowing that into the unknown. Exactly. So I'm just so grateful that those words were spoken, that 2.5 years ago, whenever that was, that you threw that out there, and they were received here. And as a result, I believe I'm a better person from having been given those words and acting on them. It does require action, right? A lot of times we forget that we actually have to act in this world as well. But I think it's a beautiful thing.
Well said.
Amen. Amen, brother. Well, on that note, shall we?
All right.
Close
Have
it
a
up for
wonderful
this,
day, everybody.
Week. Yeah.
Thank you.
And, awesome holidays. Thanks everybody for watching. Check out these guys. Get a motorbike. We'll see you on the road.
Exactly.
We'll have to get Lan out. Right?
All right.
Or you can go in the back with me.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Love you.